Welcome to the Hunter Education COVID-19 Certification Track. This extended online learning program is a temporary offering developed in response to COVID-19 and social distancing guidelines, which resulted in the cancellation of our Hunter Education courses. We understand that the cancellations have been as inconvenient and frustrating for you as they have for us, and we put together an alternative path to certification for you to work on during the stay-at-home period. Our goal creating this course is to help you get into the woods as quickly as possible while still maintaining the high standards for student safety and course material that we expect out of our in-person courses. Upon completion of the required coursework, you will be eligible to enroll in a modified field day when our classes resume. This field day, in combination with your online studies, will satisfy the requirements for bow hunter education in Connecticut. By this time, you should have successfully completed the online Bowhunter education course at www.bowhunter-ed.com. This video will build off some of the knowledge and skills you learned in that course. There are 3 parts to this video. The first is Connecticut bow hunting laws and regulations. The second is safe bow handling. And the third is hunter ethics and responsibility. By the end of the video, you should have a solid foundation for what it means to be a safe, ethical, lawful, and responsible hunter in Connecticut. We will now begin part 1 of the video, Connecticut bow hunting laws and regulations. The Connecticut bow hunting laws and regulations portion of this presentation covers the laws and regulations as they pertain to hunting with a vertical or horizontal bow in Connecticut on both state and private land. As a lawful hunter, it is your responsibility to remain up to date on Connecticut laws and regulations. Throughout the presentation, a smaller version of this box will appear at the bottom of the screen. The page numbers in the box reflect where you can find the appropriate information in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. The fee structure for all licenses and permit types can be found in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. Please be advised, having an archery deer small game license is required to hunt deer, turkey, and small game with a bow in Connecticut. In addition to your archery license, you will also need a Connecticut resident game bird conservation stamp to hunt turkey in Connecticut. There are no additional permits needed to hunt deer with a bow on state or private land in Connecticut, unless you plan to hunt a lottery-only or permit-required area. This is an example of a Connecticut hunting license. Your conservation ID can be found at the top of each page, above your personal information, or as part of the barcode on the bottom. The conservation ID is your unique and permanent identification number in Connecticut. It is connected to both your hunter education and boating certifications and is used when purchasing a hunting or fishing license. When you purchase a new hunting or fishing license each year, please remember to use the same conservation ID in order to avoid certification issues. This area lists the privileges that are valid with your license. In addition to your license type, you must purchase all applicable permits and stamps for the species you wish to hunt. They will be listed here as you purchase them. All hunting licenses and permits must be signed in order to be valid. Phone numbers for NCON's tip line and emergency dispatch are located on your license should you need them. If you have a personal watercraft certificate and a safe water skiing endorsement, they will appear beneath the barcode on the bottom. Your hunter safety certifications are printed at the bottom of your license. The numbers next to your certification are the class number and the date you took the class. Because your classes are recognized by both the International Hunter Education Association and the National Bowhunting Education Foundation, these numbers are recognized nationwide and can be given to other states for non-resident licenses. Please note, we no longer mail out hunter safety certificates. All credentials are now printed on the license. Licenses can be purchased online or through a vendor. You must possess a physical copy of your license with a valid signature whenever you are hunting or fishing in Connecticut. New statutes and regulations related to hunting and trapping may be added during the calendar year, or some may change. Although we do our best to have the most up-to-date information in this guide, be prepared for changes to occur. The best way to stay current is to check the DEEP website often, especially before hunting season starts. Hunting on Sundays is prohibited in Connecticut with few exceptions. Bow hunting on private land is allowed on Sundays. In addition to the proper licenses, all Sunday bow hunters must remain at least 40 yards from all blazed trails. In addition, licensed shooting preserves and regulated dog training areas are permitted for Sunday hunting. Many of these preserves do so with the permission from the town in which they are located. Finally, Sunday hunting is allowed at permitted field events. Important to note is that there is no Sunday hunting for any firearms discipline outside of these methods. Prima facie is a Latin term meaning prime face, or as it relates to hunting, upon first sight. Prima facie evidence in Connecticut refers to the possession of a loaded hunting implement while at or entering or leaving an area where a reasonable person would believe the object was to take wildlife. To put it simply and bluntly, if you appear to be hunting and are in a place where anyone can reasonably presume you are hunting, then you are hunting. The concept of prima facie evidence begs the question, what is a loaded hunting implement as it pertains to bow hunting in Connecticut? This is an important question to ask for a few reasons. Maybe you're driving in the car to go to or home from your hunt. Maybe you stop back at the car for lunch during your hunt and put your bow in the trunk. Maybe you are deer hunting or turkey hunting and it's earlier than 1 hour before sunrise as you are walking into the woods. In each of these cases, and many others, you must know what constitutes a loaded bow. For compound, recurve, and longbows, loaded means a nocked arrow. And for crossbows, loaded means a drawn crossbow with a bolt in place. Hunting under the influence includes both alcohol and drugs. In addition to illegal and illicit drugs, you must also concern yourself with prescription drugs. Many prescription drugs carry risks of side effects that can significantly impair you physically and mentally. You should always consult your physician prior to the hunting season to ensure you can safely hunt. Some of the effects of alcohol and drugs on the body while hunting include impairment of judgment, which can be noticed in all aspects of your hunt, including game identification and decision making, lack of coordination, which inhibits our control over our hunting implement and ability to ascend and descend our tree stand safely, and fine motor control, which affects one's ability to safely handle a firearm or bow. Drugs and alcohol will also weaken one's reaction time, vision, hearing, and communication skills. Trap or target shooting on any state property or public hunting area is prohibited unless the area is a designated shooting range. The state of Connecticut offers 4 opportunities for public shooting, 3 firearm ranges, and 1 field archery range. The graphic on this slide provides more information on each and is reprinted from your hunting and trapping guide. The Nye-Holman Field Archery Range is a free field target range in Tolland, Connecticut. The range is set up and maintained according to the standards of the National Field Archery Association. There are 14 targets nestled throughout the woods. Each target is spaced apart and offer individual challenges associated with each, and shooting can take place from various distances on each. Archers can use field points only on the range, as broadheads are prohibited. Nye-Holman is open year-round. Legal bows and arrows fall into 2 categories, vertical bows and horizontal bows. We will talk more specifically about each on the next slides. Please note, the state of Connecticut strictly prohibits the possession of a firearm while bow hunting. The use of projectiles coated with any drug, poison, or tranquilizing substance is also prohibited. Longbows, recurve, and compound bows fall into the vertical bow category. There are some restrictions when using a vertical bow to hunt deer or turkey in Connecticut. First, the bow must be set to a minimum 40-pound draw weight. All broadheads used when hunting deer or turkey must contain at least 2 blades, and be a minimum of 7/8 of an inch wide at its widest point. Remember, a vertical bow is considered loaded when an arrow is not. Crossbows are horizontal bows. All crossbows must have a minimum draw weight of 125 pounds and a permanent fixed rifle stock with functional mechanical safety. The bolt of a crossbow must be a minimum length of 18 inches, and this does not include the length of the broadhead. As with vertical bows, all broadheads used when hunting deer or turkey must contain at least 2 blades and be a minimum 7/8 of an inch wide at its widest point. As a reminder, crossbows are considered loaded when they are fully drawn with a bolt in place. There are 3 different bag limits in Connecticut, and you must be in compliance with all 3 at all times. These species-specific limits can be found in the Hunting and Trapping Guide and the Migratory Bird Hunting Guide. The first is a daily bag limit. The daily bag limit is defined as a number of a particular species you can take in one day. A day is defined as 12:01 a.m. to 12 o'clock midnight. Daily bag limits for each species are listed in the Hunting and Trapping Guide or the Migratory Bird Guide. Let's take a look at the cottontail rabbit as an example, which can be found in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. The daily limit for cottontail rabbit is 3, which means you can take no more than 3 rabbits in one day. The season bag limit is the total number of a species that cannot be exceeded during a hunting season for that species. The cottontail rabbit has a season limit of 25. The final limit to consider is the possession and storage limit. Possession and storage counts the number of non-migratory bird species permitted in storage throughout the hunting season. This number can never exceed the cumulative daily bag limit, nor can it exceed the season limit. So how does it all apply? Sticking with the cottontail rabbit as our example, a hunter can take 3 rabbits on any given day of the season, but they can never exceed a total of 25. On day 1, the most rabbits one can have in storage is 3. On day 2, the most is 6. On day 3, it's 9, etc. However, the daily limit must also be taken into consideration. If a hunter has 4 cottontail rabbits in storage on day 4, they cannot have any more than 7 in storage on day 5 because of the daily bag limit. Legally, injured and unrecovered game count towards your bag limits. However, there is also an ethical component to it as well. Imagine you're hunting rabbits. You shoot and hit 3 throughout the day, however you only recover 2 of them. When walking out of the woods, your hunting buddy may ask you why you didn't take a 3rd. As an ethical, responsible, and lawful hunter, you tell him you limited out because you know you are also responsible for counting the injured animal that you couldn't recover. In addition to the proper permits, stamps, and licenses needed to hunt private land in Connecticut, landowner permission is also required. If hunting deer or turkey, this permission must be granted on a private land consent form signed by the landowner. This form can be found in the Hunting and Trapping Guide and must be carried with you at all times when hunting deer or turkey on private land. The form must clearly show the calendar year, hunting seasons, and hunting implements permitted on the property. The copy of the form you carry must have the original landowner's signature on it and cannot be a photocopy of the signature. Landowners and lineal descendants are exempt from the requirement to carry the form while hunting deer or turkey on their own land. To help maintain safety in the field, the wearing of hunter orange is strongly recommended. Beyond the recommendation, it is required from September 1st through the last day of February. Hunters are required to have a minimum of 400 square inches of visible blaze orange from the waist up and on all sides. An orange hat, in addition to a coat or vest, is strongly recommended. Archery deer hunters do not need to wear blaze orange when hunting outside of any firearms deer hunting season. If within firearms deer hunting season, archery deer hunters may remove their orange when they are a minimum of 10 feet above the ground. Turkey hunters are exempt from the orange requirement, as well as landowners when hunting deer on their own property. This does not apply to family members of landowners. A few of the exceptions to the hunter orange requirement were mentioned. A full list can be found in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. In accordance with Connecticut General Statute 2661, payment of a fine, forfeiture of a bond, or a plea or judgment of guilty for fishing, hunting, or trapping violations may result in the suspension of all sport fishing, hunting, and trapping licenses and privileges. To comply with the provisions of Connecticut General Statute Section 2631G, any person having their hunting license suspended for safety violations will be required to complete a remedial hunter education course prior to having their license reinstated following the suspension period. Remedial hunter education is taught by a member of the hunter education staff and a State of Connecticut Environmental Conservation Police officer. Violations include some of the talking points in this presentation, such as hunting under the influence, carrying a loaded firearm in a vehicle or during not legal hunting hours, and violations of the Sunday hunting requirements. A more thorough list of violations requiring completion of remedial hunter education appears in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. At some point in your hunting career, it is possible you will be faced with some hunter harassment. Fortunately, hunter harassment laws in Connecticut support the sportsman's privilege of hunting. However, in order for an NCON officer to act in your favor, you will need to have a clear case against the harasser. Follow the tips outlined on the slide and found in the Hunting and Trapping Guide to build a case against the harasser. If faced with harassment, the first thing to do is swallow your pride. The harasser may be ruining your hunt on opening day, and you just may want to tell them how you really feel. However, this is where the ethical connection comes into play. How you handle yourself at this moment is imperative. Your actions can save or ruin more than just opening day for all sportsmen. A one-page summary of season dates appears in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. The publication then breaks each season down further to provide information on bag limits, hunting hours, hunting areas, etc. All species have set hunting hours. For example, deer can be hunted 1/2 hour before sunrise to sunset, whereas squirrels can be hunted 1/2 hour before sunrise to 1/2 hour after sunset. Raccoon, on the other hand, have no restrictions for hours it can be hunted. A sunset chart, as shown on the slide, is available in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. This chart marks the official times of sunrise and sunset. These charted times must dictate your starting and end times hunting, not what you find listed on Google or in the weather app. To read this chart, simply find the time that corresponds to the day and month you are hunting. For example, take a look in the book and determine the opening day of the fall turkey hunting season on state land. Remember, you can hunt 1/2 hour before sunrise to sunset. Now find the date on the table and determine the proper hunting hours you can legally hunt on that day. Upon harvesting a deer or turkey in Connecticut, the first thing you must do is fill out and sign a harvest tag. This will be processed through the state and can be done via phone or online. When reporting a harvest, you should be ready to provide the town code in which the animal was hunted, and if harvested on state land, the code for the area as well. These corresponding numbers can be found in the Hunting and Trapping Guide on the pages listed on the slide in the lower left corner. Some details regarding deer hunting in Connecticut vary based on the town, area, or type of land you are hunting. Please refer to the Hunting and Trapping Guide for these differences. Hunting hours for deer remain the same regardless of the zone in which you are hunting. The hours are 1/2 hour before sunrise to sunset. On a previous slide, you were shown the sunset table. Please refer to this for the legal hunting hours for the day you are hunting. While deer hunting, the following activities are prohibited. Hunting with a dog in any capacity. Hunting from a motor vehicle, snowmobile, or ATV. Using a light to hunt deer. Baiting anywhere in zones 1 through 10 or on state land in zones 11 and 12. Using decoys during shotgun, rifle, and muzzleloader deer seasons. And taking of spotted fawns. Baiting is allowed on private land in zones 11 and 12 only. The map on the slide shows those areas in orange. Synthetic scent attractants are the only scent attractants permitted while deer hunting. In order to hunt turkey in Connecticut, you must possess the appropriate hunting license and a Connecticut resident game bird stamp. There are two different seasons for turkey hunting throughout the year: spring and fall. Spring turkey hunting hours are 1/2 hour before sunrise to sunset, and there is a 5-bird bag limit which is combined between public and private land and firearms and archery. All birds taken in the spring must be bearded. The hunting hours for the fall season are also 1/2 hour before sunrise to sunset. The bag limit for fall archery turkey hunting is 2 birds either sex. This bag limit is shared between state and private land. Consult the Hunting and Trapping Guide for information on specific season dates for both spring and fall turkey hunting. The State of Connecticut Hunter Education Team does not condone fanning or any other stalking technique as an appropriate turkey hunting method. It is an unsafe hunting practice. Just as we teach to avoid the wearing of red, white, blue, or black when turkey hunting so as not to look like the very animal we are hunting, we do not recommend making oneself a target to another hunter by sitting behind a turkey fan. There are stories of deer hunters being shot at while foolishly carrying a deer over their shoulder, and we have condemned them for that. Why should disguising yourself as a turkey be any different? Remember, you may be the only person with permission to hunt a plot of land, but that doesn't mean you are the only one hunting on that land. The best way to be safe in the field is to be smart in the field. There are numerous season dates, bag limits, and conditions for hunting small game and resident game birds in Connecticut. These can all be found in your Hunting and Trapping Guide on the referenced pages. Resident game bird hunting includes pheasant, ruffed grouse, quail, chukar, Hungarian partridge, and turkey. Small game hunting encompasses gray squirrel, cottontail rabbit, snowshoe hare, European hare, and woodchuck. Coyote is the only species that can be hunted year-round in Connecticut, and there is no daily or season limit for coyote. There are, however, specific season dates and hours for hunting gray and red fox. There are no restrictions on hunting hours for raccoon and possum. However, there are season dates. Refer to your Hunting and Trapping Guide for hunting hours, season dates, and bag limits specific to raccoon and possum hunting. Certain properties owned or leased by the state of Connecticut offer hunting by daily permit only. A list of these properties and what species can be hunted on each property can be found in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. Please note that all permits are available on a first-come, first-served basis, and you cannot have more than 1 permit issued per day. Lottery permits are different than daily permit-required hunting areas. Lottery permits allow access to the land parcel specific to the lottery details for the entire season. Applications for the lottery are available online or in person at select DEEP facilities. The lottery begins January 1st and goes through February. However, there are only a select number of each permit available. The lottery is instantaneous, and if you are successful, you can buy your lottery permit at that time. If unsuccessful, you may still have a chance for the lottery area, although you will need to wait until unpurchased lottery permits go back on sale to the public on March 15th. These are first come, first served. In your studies, you are required to complete a more extensive portion on tree stand safety, which will go further into the safety aspects. In this section, we are going to focus solely on the use of tree stands on state property. There are a few things to consider when using a tree stand on state land. First, only portable tree stands can be used on state land. The construction or placement of permanent tree stands involving any damage to trees or shrubs is strictly prohibited. Any tree stands that are used on state property must be removed at the end of the hunting season. Accidents as a result of unsafe tree stand practices or the failure to wear a full body harness far outnumber the amount of hunting-related accidents related to firearm or bow safety. Most tree stand falls are, at the very minimum, life-changing. if not life-threatening. As a result, the use of a full-body safety harness is strongly recommended at all times while ascending, sitting in, and descending from your tree stand. NCON police officers are concerned with the enforcement of Connecticut laws and regulations that are intended to keep people safe, protect personal property, and conserve the state's natural resources. We have provided you with contact information for NCON in the event you need it in the future. One of the numbers provided is the 1-800 number to report violations. As ethical and responsible hunters and conservationists, it is our duty to report all known game violations. These numbers are also listed in your hunting and trapping guide and on your hunting license. While in the field, it is possible you will come in contact with an NCON officer. If you are approached by an officer, please follow these 3 rules. First, keep your bow pointed in a safe direction. This is the best and safest advice regardless of whom you encounter in the woods. Second, do not attempt to knock or unknock your arrow. And third, comply with all instructions directed to you. Remember, a safe, ethical, and responsible hunter has nothing to worry about when approached by an NCON officer in the woods. The following websites will provide you with much needed information as you continue to hunt. The Sportsman's Licensing System is the online portal to purchase the licenses and permits associated with your conservation ID. This is also the place to reprint your license and print a copy of your hunter education certifications. The Hunter Education link is the place to go for future classes and seminars. You will need your conservation ID to sign up for the classes and seminars. The next website will take you to the online mapping for public hunting areas in Connecticut. The final website acts as a reminder that all regulation changes can be found on the DEEP hunting website. Your impact as a hunter is defined by more than laws and ethics or how much time you spend in the woods. Every time you hunt and harvest wildlife, you are making a contribution to wildlife population management in accordance with the North American model of conservation. The money from license purchases is used to fund the study and management of wildlife and their habitat. We are part of a special group that has a direct monetary impact on our own interests. Another way we support hunting and conservation is through the equipment we purchase. When you purchase hunting equipment, manufacturers contribute through a federal excise tax to the Pittman-Robertson Act Fund. This money is then apportioned to the states to support and fund wildlife management, make improvements to wildlife habitat, purchase land to increase huntable areas, and fund hunter education programs that benefit new and hunters alike. We want to leave you with a final thought. As a hunter, you are also a conservationist, and you, like me, are part of a special group that has a direct impact on our ability to manage the conservation, preservation, and habitat of the same species we hunt and fish. This user-pay public benefit model is extremely successful because our sportsmen, sportswomen, and the industries that serve them have always been willing to commit the resources necessary to protect, enhance, and expand Connecticut's conservation, hunting, and fishing opportunities. Now that you have made the commitment to bow hunting, there are some additional safety considerations and bow hunting principles you must be aware of before entering the woods. The information in this presentation will help you be a safe, ethical, and responsible bow hunter. As you've learned in your online studies, there are many reasons to get into bow hunting, some of which are listed on the slide. Two of the biggest reasons are an increased challenge, and there are more opportunities to hunt than firearm hunting. Bow hunting offers an increased challenge. One of the challenges is that the hunter must be in closer proximity to the game. Although bows are quieter than firearms, they are not silent. The hunter must be as quiet as possible to not alert or scare their game. One of the primary draws for bow hunting in Connecticut is the extended season. Bow hunters can legally hunt deer from September 15th through the end of the year, and bow hunters can also hunt on Sundays on private land. Game anatomy and proper shot placement play a key role in harvesting an animal with a bow. Whatever your reasons for hunting with a bow, we encourage you to practice and be proficient with all potential shots you plan to take before you enter the woods. Before we explore the principles of bow hunting and safety considerations, we will first compare the different types of bows. Bows can either be vertical or horizontal. Vertical bows are called such because the limbs are situated on a vertical axis. These include long bows, recurve bows, and compound bows. The limbs of horizontal bows are situated on a horizontal axis. The crossbow is an example of a horizontal bow. The mechanisms that make all the bows work are similar. However, compound bows and crossbows add wheels and cams to give the archer a mechanical advantage drawing the bow. This results in heavier draw weights with significant let-off and less force required to hold the bow at full draw. Just as hunting with a bow differs significantly from hunting with a firearm, so too does hunting with a long bow, recurve bow, or compound bow differ from hunting with a crossbow. So just how does hunting with a crossbow differ from hunting with vertical bows? First is noise emission. Although both bow types are quieter than a gun, vertical bows tend to be quieter than crossbows. Regardless of the bow type used, it is possible for a deer to hear the shot and jump the string. However, the animal is more apt to jump the string when using a louder bow. The best chance to minimize an animal's reaction to the sound of the bow is to always hunt within appropriate range. Second, the limbs of a compound bow are significantly lighter than a crossbow. This has to do with the power stroke of a compound bow compared to that of a crossbow. Third, compound bows can be used in more restrictive areas. A vertical bow gives you more room in lateral movement when sitting in a tree stand. A crossbow requires more lateral space to achieve the same range of motion. Regardless of the bow type, always make sure there are no obstructions in the travel path of bow limbs. This can result in injury or death. The fourth difference favors crossbows. A hunter with a vertical bow must draw their bow in the presence of the game they are hunting. In fact, although an animal may have entered your effective range as a bow hunter, you may not be able to draw the bow without being spotted by the animal. Crossbow shooters have the advantage of drawing and loading their bow prior to game entering their effective range. Although a crossbow can be drawn and loaded in advance, it is very difficult to quickly draw and reload for a follow-up shot if needed. Drawing a crossbow while in a tree stand may also add another potential difficulty. Vertical bow shooters have the advantage of a quick follow-up shot if the need arises. Finally, vertical bows are the lightest of all hunting implements. In fact, most crossbows weigh between 7 and 10 pounds depending on accessories. Even the more expensive crossbows may only be a pound lighter. By comparison, many synthetic stocked shotguns and rifles are lighter than crossbows. Then why are crossbows so heavy? A crossbow needs the increased mass and stronger limbs to absorb the energy when firing a bolt. Why are there such differences between vertical bows and horizontal bows? This is due in large part to how the two types of bows differ in mechanics. For this discussion, we will focus solely on compound bows and crossbows as they both give the archer a mechanical advantage over their draw weight. A big difference between the mechanics of crossbows and compound bows is the power stroke. A power stroke is defined as the distance a bowstring travels from full draw to its resting position. The formula to calculate the power stroke of a compound bow is the draw length minus the distance from the brace height of the bow. For a crossbow, the power stroke is the length between the crossbow's string in the cocked position and its uncocked resting point. On compound and crossbows alike, the longer the power stroke, the more energy is transferred to the arrow, and the faster the arrow will fly. How does the power stroke apply to the speed and energy of an arrow? As you learned, a bow's draw length is a key factor in the power stroke. Therefore, the power stroke, in combination with the draw weight of the bow, has a direct impact on the speed and energy of the arrow upon release. The larger the power stroke, or the longer the draw length, the faster the arrow flies. Because the draw on a compound bow is longer than that of a crossbow, at times nearly twice the length, the compound bow can push an arrow faster and more than twice the distance of a crossbow. Crossbows have shorter strings than vertical bows. To accommodate for this, a crossbow must generate more power on the string in a shorter distance. In other words, crossbows must have more than twice the draw weight of a vertical bow to achieve the same results in speed and distance. A crossbow needs a 150-pound draw weight to achieve the same speed and energy as a compound bow with a 70-pound draw weight. The increased draw weight puts much more pressure on the limbs of the bow than a compound bow. Because these limbs move so quickly and stop so suddenly, the entire crossbow, including the limbs, must be heavier in mass to absorb the shock as compared to a compound or other vertical bow. The crossbow, as a result, is also louder and heavier than a vertical bow. Both compound bows and crossbows use cams and wheels to give the archer a mechanical advantage over the draw weight. Many modern bow manufacturers can achieve greater than 80% let-off on a compound bow. This means to draw a bow with a 70-pound draw weight, the archer needs to draw 14 pounds, not the full 70. This makes compound bows easier to draw and more comfortable to hold in position after an arrow is drawn, and while you're waiting for that perfect shot on your game. You may hear vertical bow shooters talking about arrows and crossbow shooters talking about bolts. But what's the difference? Although bolts and arrows look fundamentally the same, the word bolt is used in the industry for two reasons. First, to keep with the historical connotation of the word bolt, which dates back to the medieval times when armor-piercing bolts were fired from much stronger crossbows and used to penetrate armor. The second reason, it is used as an industry term to distinguish crossbow arrows from vertical bow arrows. When setting up your bow or crossbow, you must use the proper size, weight, and length of a bolt or arrow. There are many online calculators that you can use to match arrows to your draw weight and draw length. Using improperly sized bolts is extremely dangerous. All crossbow manufacturers recommend a specific size, weight, and length that can be safely fired from the crossbow. Shooting arrows that are shorter or lighter weight can cause safety or flight issues. When choosing a bolt for your crossbow, the bolt must never be shorter than the crossbow groove. You must never use a traditional arrow in your crossbow, and you must never use a crossbow bolt in your vertical bow. Crossbow bolts must be stronger than conventional arrows and shorter to accommodate the heavier draw weight, shorter draw length, and power stroke. Using a bolt that is too heavy or too light can cause major damage to the bow, the bolt, and the user. The same safety tip applies to vertical bow shooters as well. In Connecticut, your crossbow bolt must be at least 18 inches long, without including the broadhead in the measurement. However, your crossbow manufacturer may require a longer bolt. The weight of your bolt or arrow, if you're a vertical bow shooter, is listed in GPI, or grains per inch of shaft size. The total weight of your arrow includes the arrow or bolt itself, the nock, the insert, the broadhead, and fletchings. Shafts can be carbon fiber, aluminum, or wood, and there are many different styles of nocks. It is important that you choose a shaft and nock that is appropriate for the bow you are shooting. As we can see in this chart, the arrow drop of an arrow shot out of a crossbow exponentially increases as the distance increases. At 30 yards, an arrow shot out of a crossbow at 400 feet per second will drop almost 10 inches. Keep in mind, most crossbows do not shoot 400 feet per second, so the arrow drop will be more. Please realize, the range of a bow, whether compound or crossbow, is far less than that of a shotgun or rifle. Because the physical characteristics of a crossbow resemble more of a firearm than they do a vertical bow, many people errantly believe that a crossbow has the range of a firearm. This is not true. The range and power of a crossbow are equal to that of a vertical bow that has half the draw weight of a crossbow. To put this in other terms, a crossbow does not have a greater effective range than a compound bow, and its only similarities to firearms are the similarly named parts. Whether you are hunting with a crossbow or a vertical bow, you must be aware of your own safety and the safety of others at all times. The three biggest risks for bow hunters are tree stand accidents, slices from broadheads, and exposure to the elements. Just as the broadhead is designed to sever tissue and arteries of the game we are hunting, so too will it easily slice our own flesh. To help prevent injury on your hunt, we recommend the following. Keep your broadheads covered. Broadheads should be fully covered by an arrow quiver at all times when they are not knocked on the bow and ready to be shot. All broadheads should be safely secured in the quiver when you are crossing obstacles or on rough terrain. A quiver with a hood that fully covers your broadheads is an excellent and safe addition to your bow setup. Perform regular inspection and maintenance of your equipment. This includes your bow, limbs, strings, and arrows. Pay particularly close attention for cracks in the limbs or frayed strings. Major cracks in your bow may be visible to the eye, however, pay attention for microfractures and splinters. In addition to a visual inspection, a smart practice is to lightly rub your fingers over the bow limbs to feel for small fractures. Your strings should be waxed regularly. Always wear a full body harness with suspension relief whenever you are hunting off the ground. You should be connected to the tree at all times from the moment you leave the ground to the time you return to the ground. You will learn about this in the tree stand safety portion of your studies. Carry equipment and clothing with you in case there are sudden weather changes or if you are in the woods longer than anticipated. When shooting a bow, please remember these safety tips. The phrase "fingers down" will help you remember the proper hand placement when you grip your crossbow. Your leading hand should support the bow underneath the stock. Your hand should be safely below the string behind the cable. Never dry fire a bow. Dry firing any bow, whether vertical or horizontal, is dangerous and can damage the bow. However, dry firing a crossbow can be particularly dangerous to the shooter. The damage as a result of dry firing a bow increases exponentially with draw weight. A compound bow can sustain serious damage with a draw weight of 40 to 70 pounds. Imagine the damage to a crossbow with a 125 or 150 pound draw weight. You should always avoid tight areas when you are firing your bow. Typically, vertical bows allow the shooter more room when shooting from an elevated stand, but they may be more difficult to shoot than a crossbow from within a blind. When shooting a crossbow from a tree stand, the shooter must remember that the crossbow takes up more horizontal space, and there may be a limit on the hunter's movement when aiming at game. Always make sure your limbs are not obstructed when you fire. This can cause serious damage to both you and your bow. Some modern crossbows come with a decocking mechanism. However, in the event that there isn't one, never dry fire the bow. When you hunt, you should always keep a bolt with a field tip in your quiver to safely fire the bow into a safe backstop to decock it. Some manufacturers even sell a special bolt designed to be fired into the ground at a 45-degree angle to decock your bow. These tips and more can be found in your hunting and trapping guide. This list of bow hunting safety tips can be found in your hunting and trapping guide. Prior to each use, inspect your crossbow or compound bow for cracks, dents, breaks, separating laminates, peeling glass, and defects in mechanical parts. Look closely for cracks in the limbs or frayed strings. Major cracks, microfractures, and splinters can cause damage to you and your bow. Some cracks may be visible to the eye, however the smaller ones may be more difficult to see. In addition to a visual inspection, lightly rub your fingers over the bow limbs to feel for small fractures and splinters. Check and wax the bowstring regularly, and promptly replace the bowstring if it becomes worn or frayed. In addition to waxing your strings, crossbow users must also lubricate the flight rail on the crossbow. Using a rail lubricant on the flight rail will help extend the life of your strings, as it will reduce the amount of friction created between the string and the rail when the crossbow is fired. You do not want to over-lubricate. Only a few drops of lubricant are needed for the entire rail. Protect your investment by keeping your bow or crossbow in a case when not in use, and never leave it unprotected. Never leave your bow in your vehicle for extended periods. Finally, avoid long-term storage in extreme temperatures, and do not let the crossbow or bow be exposed to significant variations in temperature. Exposure to increased temperatures can cause loosening of all connections and stretching of your string. It can also have an effect on your arrows or bolts. Cold temperatures do just the opposite. They tighten everything. From a shooter's perspective, a tighter string may be heavier to draw. The increased draw weight may be uncomfortable, but it can also negatively affect your accuracy. All storage and usage tips apply to your arrows or bolts as well. Proper care and maintenance is the best way to ensure the longevity of your equipment. During the hunter ethics and responsibility portion of this presentation, we will discuss topics including what are ethics, fair chase, creating a hunter's code, and hunter responsibilities. We will also present exercises that test your ability to hunt ethically and responsibly. So let's get started. Ethics, by definition, is a set of moral principles that governs a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. But we need to think of ethics as more than just guiding principles. Ethics is a set of moral codes or values that go beyond formal laws. And in its simplest terms, ethics is doing the right thing when no one else is watching. So what defines the right thing? The foundation for doing the right thing begins with laws, but as we will see, it is much more complex than that. So why do we have hunter ethics? Laws provide very definitive boundaries in which hunters must act, but laws can't cover everything. Hunter ethics fills the gaps between how the law says to act and the right or moral way to act. Our ethics kick in after laws stop, and for safe, ethical, and responsible hunters, ethics is aligned with the spirit of the law and conservation. Just as laws are written to preserve the wildlife, there is a notion of preservation attributed to ethics, but it's not exclusively wildlife related. Ethics preserves the hunter's opportunity to hunt. These opportunities can range from maintaining wildlife populations by not overhunting to helping guarantee that hunting is welcomed and hunting areas remain open. Keeping hunting areas open preserves opportunities to hunt. However, many of these decisions are based on public opinion and perception of hunters, and this has a direct connection to ethics. You may be aware of the 10-10-80 principle, which states 10% of the population is pro-hunting, 10% is vehemently against it, and 80% has no opinion. How hunters act in and out of the field can have a direct impact on which side of the hunting debate 80% of the population falls. Many hunters acting ethically may only begin to sway the 80% to favor hunting. Conversely, just one unethical, illegal hunter, better known as a poacher, can drive the 80% to the anti-hunting side. Let's do our part as ethical hunters to help enhance the public perception of hunting while also preserving the opportunity to hunt. Fair chase is defined by the Boone and Crockett Club as the ethical, sportsmanlike, and lawful pursuit and taking of any free-ranging, wild, native North American big game animal in a manner that does not give the hunter an improper advantage over such animals. Fair chase is fundamental to ethical hunting. The concept of fair chase addresses the balance between the hunter and the hunted. It's this balance that allows hunters to occasionally succeed while animals generally avoid being taken. Anyone that has spent any time in the woods knows the animals are getting away from us more than they are aligning themselves in our sights. We need to ask ourselves a few questions when we consider fair chase. Does the animal have a reasonable chance of escaping? Is this practice respectful to the animal? And is this practice aligned with local norms? One of the things that's often asked of us is how the use of hunting equipment falls under the umbrella of fair chase. We need to think at this point of the human being as the apex predator with diminished abilities. Does the presence of a hunting implement in our hand put us at an unfair advantage over that deer, or that turkey, or that squirrel? It alone does not. However, there are other elements to fair chase that, if ignored, would put us at an unfair advantage. For example, an animal trapped in snow or on ice, jacklighting or shining a light on an animal at night, using tranquilizers or poisons to slow the animal down, or having animals inside in escape-proof enclosures. Or to some, the act of baiting could be considered against principles of fair chase. We are going to work through some scenarios in a shoot or don't shoot simulator. Using everything we've learned from our Hunter Education online course, our laws and our ethics training, we will determine whether or not it is safe, ethical, and responsible to shoot in the given scenarios. In our first scenario, we see the backside of a deer. Would you shoot or not shoot? That's correct. You would not take this shot. This shot does not allow for a clean, efficient kill on the animal. Any shot taken from this vantage point will not provide a direct and unobscured path to vital organs. This shot will certainly cause the animal extreme pain and suffering. Often, these animals are injured and unfortunately never recovered by hunters. An ethical hunter will never take this shot. Here we see 3 turkeys. Shoot or don't shoot. We are presented with one Jake with a short beard and 2 hens. In Connecticut, turkey hunting is limited to bearded birds in the spring and either sex in the fall. This is a shoot moment in either spring or fall archery seasons, provided you are shooting the Jake. Turkey vital areas are higher and farther back than on most animals. The red dot shows the best aim point for this shot. In our next shoot or don't shoot scenario, we are faced with a beautiful buck looking directly at us. What would you do? That's right, this is a don't shoot moment. The quartering toward shot always carries with it the possibility of missing a vital organ if the organs are protected by thick bone. But that's not the problem with this shot. Did you notice the second deer behind the buck? Just as there is an entrance wound, there could also be an exit wound, and we cannot possibly take this shot without potentially injuring the animal behind it. We must always know our target and what lies beyond it. Here we have a face-to-face with a broadside buck. What do? There are no animals in the background of this shot, and we have the vital area exposed. This is about as clean a shot as you will get. Did you take it? Or did the very real buck fever kick in and the adrenaline cause your heart to start racing and your hands to shake ever so slightly? We've even put a target on it for you. The rest is up to you. Okay, let's try this one. Shoot or don't shoot. That's right. You would not take the shot in this situation. The taking of spotted fawns is illegal in Connecticut. Here's another buck that would look great over the mantle. What do? That's right. You should never take a shot that is on a horizon. You need to keep in mind the range of the arrow travels much farther than we can imagine. We have no idea what is on the other side of the horizon or where the arrow will land. Never take this shot. Good job with the shoot or don't shoot scenarios. We are now going to look at a few items that can fall under the categories of rules and laws, ethics, or both. For each of the following, determine if they are governed by rules and laws, governed by ethics, or governed by both. Ask why they are ethical. Aside from being law-abiding, what are the ethical reasons for acting in these cases? The first is bag limits. Bag limits exist for conservation purposes to preserve wildlife. Bag limits are governed by the law. If you break them, you're breaking the law. But are you also being unethical? Absolutely. But bag limits in and of themselves are a law. Littering is against the law. Whether you purposely throw the cigarette butt on the ground, or leave the candy wrapper stuffed in a tree, or inadvertently left your shotgun hole, rifle casing, or broken arrow in the woods, it's still littering. Ethically, the trash can spoil the environment, ruin habitat, and it can foster bad relationships with private landowners. Keep in mind, picking up trash, hulls, and casings, even if not your own, is the ethically correct choice to make. In and of itself, baiting can be considered an unethical practice because baiting is not aligned with fair chase. However, as we have learned, there are some zones in Connecticut that allow baiting for management purposes. There are other legal circumstances when baiting is allowed, for example, licensed nuisance control. So depending on your vantage point, baiting can be ethical, a law, or both. Although there are wanton waste laws, we don't have any laws in Connecticut that specifically speak out against trophy hunting. This act is purely ethical. Are you hunting for the sake of the mount and not putting any of the animal to use? Or are you hunting for meat and exercising a full use of the resource? How you view trophy hunting may in fact show the direction you lean ethically as a hunter. In Connecticut, there is no law requiring the covering of taken game during transportation, and there is no law requiring that taken game remain exposed. This, like trophy hunting, is covered under ethics. How we handle ourselves in this situation goes a long way in how hunting is viewed by the non-hunting public. Be smart. No kid needs to see Rudolph in the back of your truck 3 weeks before Christmas. We discussed hunter harassment in the laws section of the presentation. Connecticut harassment laws support the sportsman's privilege of hunting in Connecticut, but we want you to have a strong case against the harasser. So yes, laws come into play, but so do ethics. How you handle yourself in this situation will be determined by your moral code. We have applied ethics and laws to a few shooting scenarios and looked at situations where ethics and laws shape us as hunters. Now we will examine a few scenarios that put our ethics to the test in the field. Scenario 1. You shoot a buck and it runs off. As you track it, you find it bedded down in pain. Approaching the deer, you notice a small sign posted to a tree 10 yards away. What should you do? Check the sign. It is possible the sign is private land marker or a no trespassing sign. If the sign does denote private property, make sure you first consult the landowner and receive permission to track the animal on their property. Scenario 2. You have just shot at a nice buck. You thought you saw him flinch, but he disappeared over a hill with no apparent wound. What should you do? Whether you think you hit the deer or not, you have an ethical responsibility to track the animal to make sure you didn't wound it. Check the area where you thought the deer was. Look for blood and other signs of a hit. If you find some, track the deer. If you don't find any, you still must track the deer to be sure. The last thing an ethical and responsible hunter wants is to leave a wounded animal in the woods. Scenario 3. You are sitting in your tree stand and you see movement. You make out what appears to be the head and body of a deer. Although it is within legal hunting hours, it is still a little too dark to see the entire body. Although within legal hunting hours, it would be unsafe and irresponsible to shoot in this scenario. A safe and responsible hunter will always identify their target from nose to tail before taking a shot. Just as ethics and morals are guiding sets of principles we follow when we act, our unique hunter's code is a set of ideals and principles we follow when we hunt. This code should be grounded with laws and ethics. However, it is a dynamic code, meaning it should be ever-changing and evolving as we hunt. Not changing in a way that loosens our ethics in certain scenarios, but rather changes in ways that strengthens our code based on our increasing abilities as we grow as hunters. A few examples from a hunter's code are on the screen, but you are encouraged to make a list of 10 or 12 of your own to follow. Is hunting a privilege or a right? Many errantly believe hunting is a right, however it is not. Hunting is a privilege that can be taken away at any time. Because of this, hunters continue to be the paint, the brush, and the canvas that the non-hunting public uses to shape their view of hunting. Therefore, it is integral that we recognize the responsibilities that come with the privilege of hunting. We, as hunters, have responsibilities to ourselves, fellow hunters, the game, the land, and the public. We must continually ask ourselves, if someone else behaved the way I am, would I still respect them as a hunter? Hunters must be able to answer yes to this question if we hope to preserve hunting for all generations to come. The first responsibility we have hunting is to ourselves. Hunting is a physically demanding sport. For this reason, we need to make sure we are physically fit and physically capable of performing all tasks related to the hunt. The hike in may require one level of physical demand, whereas the deer drag out requires an exponentially greater level of fitness. We have a responsibility to know our limitations and to respect them. We all have limitations, whether they be medical, physical, medicinal, mental, etc. Always consult your physician and know whether or not you can meet the physical and mental rigors of the hunt. If you require medication, make sure the side effects will not impede your hunt, and make sure to carry extra medication with you in case you get lost. We have a responsibility to know our equipment and how to safely use it. We should have sighted in and practiced with that equipment long before we ever stepped into the woods. We need to know where we are hunting, and we need to share with others where we are hunting. Sharing our hunt plan with someone will make it easier for them to track us down in the event of an emergency. We need to know the laws and regulations that go along with hunting. The first step in being an ethical and responsible hunter is being a lawful hunter. You can't be a responsible and ethical hunter if you don't know the laws and regulations. Finally, continue to increase your knowledge. Hunting is a dynamic sport, and we should always be students of the game. We should learn, we should practice, we should evolve as hunters. Every time you go out, it should be a new learning experience. We have a responsibility to ourselves and the game to increase that knowledge and learn from it. In addition to ourselves, we also have a responsibility to our fellow hunters. This comes in many forms. First, we have a responsibility to respect their hunt. Let other hunters prepare for their hunt in the woods. For example, don't make unnecessary noise when hiking in, and if you see other hunters hunting your spot, don't make a scene. Quietly turn around and leave. Even if your plans for a hunt were ruined, don't ruin their hunt as well. You have a responsibility to be safe. We all want to make it home at night. I do, you do, every other hunter in the woods does. Be safe. Don't make yourself a target. This is common sense that you shouldn't disguise yourself as the very game you and others are trying to hunt. By making yourself a target, you are putting yourself and others at risk. Think of it this way. The hunt and life you ruin may not just be your own. You have a responsibility to report violations. This speaks to ethics and laws. We must report any violations, whether a violation of a bag limit or hunting under the influence, etc. Ethically, it is our responsibility to report, and turning our head to a violation is just as bad as committing the crime ourselves. Another one of our responsibilities as a hunter is to the game itself. We need to know the animal we are hunting. We need to know their anatomy, their habitat, their habits, their feeding preferences, etc. Understanding their anatomy will help us understand shot placement. Knowing the location of vital organs or thick bones allows the hunter the opportunity to make a quick, efficient, and humane kill. Humanely and ethically taking an animal should always be our top goal as a hunter. Another responsibility we have to the game is that we use what we harvest. We promote full use of the harvested animal. In addition to hunting for meat, this includes using the hide, antlers, feathers, etc. The more we use, the less of the animal we waste. Finally, we have a responsibility to respect all wildlife, including non-game wildlife. Our hunting locations are another animal's homes. We have a responsibility to not destroy their habitat, to not corrupt their food source, and to never take non-game species. We also have a responsibility to the land itself. We need to respect the land and be a steward of the land. We need to look over the land and care for it and treat it as if it's our own. If it's public land, it's partly our own. If it's private land, maybe it's yours, maybe it's not. But if it's private land and it's not yours, at least the privilege to hunt that land is yours. Do not take that lightly. Leave no trash on any of the land you hunt, and if necessary, pick up trash that isn't yours. And of course, ensure no needless destruction of the land. The land belongs to you and me and everyone. And more so, the same land we hunt is the same land that is home to countless species of wildlife. Our final responsibility is to the public. We need to respect the opinion of the public. We have already mentioned in previous slides that the public is made up of 10% pro-hunting, 10% anti-hunting, and 80% in the middle. We need to respect other people's opinions, and we cannot flaunt our own. We cannot live up to the misconceptions about hunting. Again, going back to the 10-10-80 model, 80% of the population knows very little about hunting, and 10% have a wildly inaccurate preconceived image and notion of hunters. The images in the minds of those against hunting more accurately depicts that of a poacher, not a hunter. Don't live up to the misconceptions. Always be a lawful, ethical, and responsible hunter. We need to promote a positive image of hunting. Think of every face of every hunter you know. Look at your friends around you that hunt. No face is the same. They're all different. Hunters come from all walks of life. They can be retail employees, doctors, chefs, firefighters. They can be truck drivers. They can be retired or unemployed. It doesn't matter what hunters do for a living. We need to view them all in a positive light, and we need to positively portray hunting at all times. This is especially true with social media and any comments or photos we post. We never know when the spotlight is on us. Think about it this way. One illegal hunter, one irresponsible or unethical hunter, one poacher can ruin it for all, just as one bad apple will spoil the entire fruit stand if it sits there long enough. Hunter ethics and responsibility plays a major role in defining who we are as hunters, both individually and as a collective group. Always remember that together, safe, ethical, and responsible hunters will preserve the privilege to hunt for all future generations. Congratulations on completing the bow hunting laws, ethics, and safe bow handling portion of the COVID-19 Hunter Education Certification track. Please refer to your COVID-19 certification checklist for a more detailed list of next steps for what to do and what to expect as you continue and complete the COVID-19 Hunter Education Certification track.